Good morning, dear partners. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our 22nd Gurtam meetup. My name is Liana Shatova, and I'm Senior Partner Success Manager with Gurtam North America. I've been with the company for over 2 years now, and I work mainly with the partners from the United States and Canada. Gurtam meetups are online events for the online community where every Thursday at 5 p.m. Minsk time, our partners and Gurtam experts discuss the burning topics of the telematics industry. In case you miss our previous episodes, you can always see the recordings on the Gurtam YouTube channel and on our meetup webpage. The link will be sent in the chat. So this meetup is also being recorded. A couple of reminders before we start. During the webinar, your questions and ideas can be posted in the chat. We'll do our best to address as many of those as we can at the end of the meetup. If you want to ask your question, your questions to be visible to everyone, please use the chat option to all panelists and attendees. You can also ask your questions in the YouTube chat. So every day I talk to my partners, I help them address their questions and advise on their projects. They in turn share the knowledge of the industry and outside of the box approach to tackle their business cases. 3 such business cases inspired us to create this meetup today. So the topic of our meetup today is the recent COVID-19 use cases in telematics breakdown. So I would like to introduce our guest experts today. From Canada, we are welcoming Éric Bourbeau, the CEO and co-founder of X-Telia. From the United States, we are happy to see Mike Lawless again, the Executive Vice President of Business Development of Direct Communication Solutions. Hi, Mike. Hi, Éric. How are you today?
Doing great.
Mike, we cannot hear you. Sorry.
Muted. Thank you. Good morning, Liana. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you back, Mike, and it's great to have you, Éric, today with us. So the first thing I would like to ask you is to make a brief introduction to your companies. So Éric is joining us for the first time. Éric, can you please introduce X-Telia?
Sure. We're an IoT company, systems integrator. We also operate a public LoRaWAN network in Canada here. So we provide solutions, IoT solutions for smart city markets, agriculture, industrial IoT, a variety, smart building, that sort of thing. So anything kind of new and innovative really excites us, and some of the stuff we're going to talk about today is part of that innovation that we're doing on a daily basis.
Thank you, Éric, and please, Mike, can you introduce DCS again?
Very good. Thank you, Liana. Yeah, so very similar to Éric's company, DCS is also an IoT company. So what that means basically is that we solve problems. So we solve problems for our partners, and they come to us with a wide variety of issues that they have, and that we partner with Gurtam on. So everything from fleet and asset management type problems with logistics or just basic dots on a map, all the way through to sensor-based management and real IoT solutions. So the actual things in the T is really where we focus.
Thank you, gentlemen. So now I would like to talk more about our agenda today. So our agenda will consist of the following blocks of questions. So the first one includes questions about how the ideas were born, how the ideas for your business cases related to COVID-19 were born, then technical implementation, a couple of words about that, testing and launching, results and recommendations, and also Q&A session at the end of the meetup. Since Éric has 2 business cases related to COVID-19, I suggest we proceed, we alternate turns. So Éric will talk about the first case, then Mike answers the questions about the DCS's case, and then Éric takes over again. Will that work with you guys?
Looks fine.
Okay, thank you. So now before we jump into the questions about how the ideas were born, I would like to provide some COVID-19 statistics. In Canada, there are about 97,000 confirmed cases of coronavirus, with 53,000 in Quebec, where Éric is from. In the United States, there are over 2 million confirmed cases, Northeast and California being hit the hardest. So can you please briefly comment about the situations with COVID, about the restrictions that you have in the states and the province you're from?
Yeah, well, I guess it's like everywhere else in the world, you know, we're all living through this pandemic. Some states or some cities or some countries have been more strict or quicker to put in place confinement measures, and obviously you see the results vary by country in terms of how that was done. Here in Quebec, where I am, even though in the Montreal area is where there's the most cases, it's also where I think we were the quickest to put in place restriction measures. That means that some of the major projects, like large public construction projects, were all stopped, put on hold. One of them is the construction of an electric train that is going to circle all around on the greater Montreal area, join the airport, downtown, the South Shore, North Shore. It's approximately something like 50 miles long, this whole construction site. So it's a huge construction site, almost 3,000 workers for the next 5 years. And this whole thing came to a grinding halt because of COVID-19. So there was a lot of pressure, like there is everywhere else, to restart the economy. Construction is a pretty important part of the economy. So there was pressure to reopen this massive construction site. So this company, the consortium that's building the train, was actually already a customer of ours. So they reached out to us and said, "Hey, do you have any solution to help us? We have a problem."
Éric, I apologize. We will talk about it later. So it's just
okay.
like
Sorry, you're just going over the.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Is the economy reopening? Do you also have phases like we have in the United States and all over the world?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's every province here. It's like the states in the U.S. Every state is doing it a little bit differently. Same thing here. You know, some are reopening schools or daycare, some are not. Some have some restaurants open, shopping malls. I mean, it varies by region, by province, by city even. So I think it's the same probably in the US, I assume.
Thank you, Éric. Mike, what about you? How are the things in California? I know that California is among the states being hit the hardest. So how are the things there?
Yeah. Thank you, Liana. Yeah, so very similar, like you said, to New England. You know, California, Southern California especially, is a very densely populated area. You've got basically a megalopolis that reaches from down here in San Diego all the way up basically to Santa Barbara, and it's completely interconnected. So I would say we're moving forward, we're advancing, but with extreme caution. So very carefully mitigating any type of risk. But also, as Éric mentioned, you know, still advancing, right? So trying to advance the local economy, so nothing stagnates too ridiculously, I guess. But also, in addition to that, DCS, right? So we're advancing with this as well. So immediately we put all precautions into place with contactless logistics system, right? So that we can continue to ship and move our solutions and get them out into our the value chain and the supply chain, and really in our customers' hands, so that they can solve those problems that I mentioned earlier. So moving forward and advancing, but with extreme caution.
Thank you, gentlemen, for commenting on, you know, on the situation in your state and in province. So now I would like to ask you to briefly introduce the projects that you've been working on and the projects that you launched related to COVID-19 cases. And I know that Éric already started talking about his project. Yeah. Éric, can you please continue talking about, you know, the construction side that you've been working on?
Yes, as I was saying earlier, yeah, so a lot of pressure to reopen this construction site. There's about probably 200 trailers all over this construction site. There's portable toilets all over the place. There's new hand washing stations. All of these have to be cleaned multiple times a day. And the whole logistics of resupplying hand sanitizer, soap, paper towels, all that becomes critical because you don't want to run out of soap anywhere. It wasn't such a big issue before COVID-19. It's a huge issue now. There's also an interest in finding out, let's say one worker shows up or a cleaning person shows up or wakes up in the morning, they're sick. Well, it'd be interesting to know who they were in contact with in the last day or 24 hours or a few days. So these are all requirements that the customer came up to us with and said, can you help with the logistics of refilling everything? Can you help with tracking what's been cleaned when, and also interactions between people? So that's essentially the use case that we attacked with this solution.
And can you please briefly comment on the second case?
Okay.
Just, brief couple
Sure.
of words.
As part of this whole COVID-19 thing, they realized that handling paper might be a source of transmission of the virus. So they decided that they wanted to start doing reception or receiving of materials on the construction site completely paperless. Before that, they would, the truck would pull up with 2x4s and would hand somebody a piece of paper and they would sign on it and keep the piece of paper. And later on, somebody would go into a system and enter a budget code. So now with the Gurtam solution platform, we're able to implement a completely paperless solution that we'll talk about.
Great, thank you so much, Éric. Now, Mike, can you please introduce your case, the case that DCS have been working on?
Yeah, thank you, Liana. So, I guess hopefully we're bookending this, right? So when we had our first Gurtam conversation here, and it was really when everything was kicking off, right? And what's the situation and what's happening? We're looking at problems, and what I discussed last time is really having conversations, right? So not pitches, not sales pitches, not talking to your partners, but actually asking them questions. What problems are they having? So that's exactly what we did. And what we found is that medical devices and medical equipment had a, basically a spotlight shining on it. So if you were reading anything or watching any news, a lot of medical equipment kept coming into play, and the most critical was ventilators, right? And that was kind of our thought process, right? That the ventilators are really the mission critical solution to the problem that we're having. So we focused on that, and then we thought about really what basic solution can we develop quickly that provides a solves the problem really for hospitals and medical device companies. So I started calling, right, and called the local hospital and offered to donate, right? I called their donation line is how I got through. And I said I would like to donate some IoT solutions to help track ventilators. And that spiked in interest. And they transferred me to their IT department, and they were very interested. So that's what really kicked it off. So I'd say it's really the necessity is the mother of invention, and that's just kind of where it went. And the solution itself is pretty basic, and I know we'll discuss that, but we wanted to address the issue at hand and tackle that problem immediately.
Okay, great. Well, so basically the two ideas, like the three ideas were born by the necessity in Éric's case to monitor the cleaning, the cleaning services as well as employees, and contactless, paperless receipt of the load. And in Mike's case, there was a need. Actually, there was not a need, but then you asked questions and you got the right answers, and the hospitals were willing actually to collaborate on that. That's really great. Okay, so now we are switching to the technical implementation. We have three questions about technical implementations briefly in a couple of words. So Éric will start with the first case, then again Mike, then again Éric. So Éric, can you please comment on the hardware choice? In the case with tracking cleaning services on the construction site, what was the hardware choice, hardware manufacturer, and what were the requirements to the hardware?
Okay. Well, in this case, we decided to go with WiaTag, just because all these cleaners already have a phone, and that would significantly reduce the the cost of implementing the solution, make it a lot quicker as well. As I mentioned earlier, we're a LoRaWAN network operator. We do a lot of projects, tracking projects, using your platform, but with LoRa or LoRaWAN based trackers or GPS trackers for vehicles and all kinds of assets. In this case, we decided to go with simply a software solution. So WiaTag application on the phone, either iPhone or Android, and then using barcoding as the main strategy to confirm when a cleaning of a toilet or a trailer is done, when we need refilling of sanitizer or soap. It's all done through barcodes, or QR codes, I should say, that are deployed on the construction site. So QR codes and software application.
Thank you, Éric. Mike, can you please comment on the hardware choice of DCS to track ventilators?
Yes, so exactly with respect to medical devices, and we wanted to make sure that we weren't too intrusive on the equipment, right? So we looked and moved forward with a product that we're calling the MyFleet Bolt and the MyFleet Bolt Mini. And we like the sound of that, right? It sounds powerful, it sounds strong, and it gives you the impression that you can actually bolt this device onto the equipment. So the MyFleet Bolt Mini is very small, say the size of a deck of cards. But what I like most about it is it can be manufactured with magnets in the device. So you can literally pick up the device, and the term is slap and track, right? But you can load it right on or add it right onto anything that's metal, and you're off and running immediately. You also have the opportunity to bolt it and do it without magnets, right? So if the magnets are intrusive at all to the solution and become more of a problem, you can actually bolt or rivet it down as well. It is IP rated, right? So it can withstand any weather conditions, power washer, right? So it's IP67 rated. And it has that ability also to move. So if someone wanted to take it off of something, you can move it to something else as well. And then it's a mini, meaning that it's for smaller equipment, and then for larger equipment, there's also the MyFleet Bolt itself.
So the question to both of you guys, how did you program the hardware devices to ping? Like, how often do they ping? In case of WiaTag, Éric, and in case of MyFleet Bolt Mini. So Mike, can you please answer about the DCS's hardware?
Yeah.
How is it programmed?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ping rate is set because it's battery powered, right, Liana? We want to make sure that it's not draining too quickly, and that it's pinging or really reporting in as often as needed. So we set that ping rate for 4 times a day. So every 6 hours, it's pinging in 1 time with the location, right? So it's leaving that location, and again, I think we're going to talk about it later, but the solution isn't really, it's not that type of solution. It's nothing that you're going to look at a dashboard and actually see where it is. It's very alert driven. So we wanted to respect the battery life in it and try and expand that battery life. So 4 pings a day will last about 18 months or a year and a half. And then it's also rechargeable as well. So that battery can be recharged. So we thought that was a perfect amount of time for a solution like this.
Thank you, Mike. And Éric, can you please comment on the configuration of WiaTag that you're using in the cleaning, in the tracking of cleaning services?
Sure. We set up well, in WiaTag, you have a variety of different options for how often you want to ping. You can be very aggressive. So like pretty much real time as you're moving around, you're sending location positions, all the way to very less often. So once a day or whatever you set it to. We kind of went with a middle of the road. So every 5 minutes, position data is sent. The way WiaTag works is it will, there's a black box feature. So on the phone, it will store position information as you're moving around. Again, you can set up parameters for that. It could be motion activated, it could be speed activated, distance activated, etc. But basically, for 5 minutes, we store position information on the phone in the black box. Every 5 minutes, we dump the black box into the cloud. So then we have a lot of data, but we're not using a lot of battery doing all this transmission all the time.
Thank you. Éric, can you please also comment on the second case? is it different? Is it also WiaTag on some sort of other hardware?
Yeah, in the second case, with the paperless receiving, it's also WiaTag. It's very similar. We're not tracking the position of the workers because it's not really what we're after here. We're after the waybill coming in from a delivery truck. So we're not doing the breadcrumbing, if you'd like, which is the tracking of everywhere a person's walking on the construction site. But when we do take a photo and basically scan the paper, then we'll get information about the location of that, and I'll show you that in a quick demo later on.
So in both cases, Éric, you are using WiaTag, but in the first case, the important feature that you're using in WiaTag is scanning the QR codes, and then the second one is basically taking the picture and sending it to the person or to other department.
Also in our cleaning scenario, because it's such a huge construction site, some people are lone workers in different areas. We're also using the SOS feature of WiaTag. So if ever a worker has a situation, whatever it may be, they can just press the SOS button. That will notify someone, but there's also a programmed phone number in the profile, which is the right person they should be calling in that area of the construction site. So they don't have to memorize phone numbers, and we can change those numbers just remotely by pushing a configuration.
And what about the custom statuses that you have when it comes to cleaning services? I remember you also introduced those.
Yeah, we did a lot of work and testing with customizing the status. So on the WiaTag application, you can have on the home screen custom questions or buttons. So for example, do you have any COVID-19 symptoms? Have you been in close contact with somebody who has? So you could ask workers every day when they come into work or before coming into work to simply press the radio button to inform of their status. And based on that, we can have, of course, notifications, alerts. Their managers can be notified. They can call them up right away and say, hey, stay home, don't come into work, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Now I would like to ask about the requirements to the GPS tracking platform, to wialon that you're using. What were the requirements? What features and functionality you used in implementing these cases? Again, Éric, can you please comment on the tracking cleaning services? What were the core requirements that you needed from the platform?
Okay. We use wialon local. Hosted here in Canada on Amazon. So we run our own instance. We used essentially notifications notifications. So whenever a QR code is scanned, it triggers a notification. Depending on what's written, we dissect the actual text that is behind the QR code to know what that means. So if it's, for example, a request for soap for a certain area, well, that will be routed to a different place than if it's, for example, a notification to say that the cleaner has finished cleaning a trailer. So it's all notification based, but we analyze what's being scanned, and based on that, we have different actions that are taken. We record events. So the events also is used in there. We generate reports based on these events. Photos, of course, the ability to take photos and generate reports on photos. It's also being used. So those are the main features, I'd say.
Yeah, so those are, and then obviously QR codes come as parameters, and these are parameter-based notifications as well as reports, right?
Correct, parameter-based.
Mike, can you please comment on the requirements to the system, in the DCS's case of tracking ventilators, please?
Yeah. Yes, understood, Liana. Yeah, so again, this was meant to be a basic solution, right? So we wanted something quick and very basic, as opposed to our advanced solution that we'll talk about as well. So mainly geofences, Liana, right? So the idea was for a hospital, a campus, a facility to really be able to easily create a geofence around their desired location, right? So let's say a hospital. So they're going to draw a geofence around a hospital and then really set up an alert or a notification to be notified if that geofence is broken. And then if that geofence is broken, that's where they'll take that action and actually be able to track. So in order, really, it's creating a geofence and using the geofences or geofencing functionality, and then moving right over into the notifications and obviously reports, but then on to tracking, right? Or even monitoring, right? If that thing is in motion actively at the moment. So they'll be able to monitor the location of that high value asset and then take action to recover that asset.
When tracking ventilators, when using geofences, so do you mean that those ventilators are being transported somewhere else, not within the hospital, but you know, somewhere else, right?
Yeah, well, that's the idea, right? That's the concept anyway, is that it should stay at that location. And if they're aware that it's going to move, they'll have an audit trail that it did move, right? So even if they're notified, they're like, yeah, that's authorized. So so take no action, right? But yeah, the idea, go ahead, Liana.
So can it be the case of, like you mentioned earlier, that one ventilator can be used in some other medical facility or even, you know, at home? So is that the case?
Correct, exactly, right? You know, if it's meant to be transported to, say, a sister hospital or another facility or whatever the case may be, they have an audit trail, right? And that's really the concept a lot behind IoT, you know, or anything. I like to say really gets into the reporting. The reporting is really what endures, right? That's what sticks around. That provides people with that audit trail against any litigious action or, you know, financial accounting, anything they have to do down the line. They have that ability.
So geofences reports, tracks, all of the features that you're using. And you mentioned also the advanced feature, like the advanced option that you also have for tracking ventilators. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
I can. Yeah, I can for a while though. So yes, right. So again, this was meant to be a quick solution and something where we were putting it out, putting it in the field, and people were able to utilize that solution to fix their problems. Our more advanced solution is under our My Sensors banner, right? And that also works with Gurtam on the Flespy side. So what we're developing for My Sensors are really BLE beacons, right? So Bluetooth 5.0 beacon that connects to a router or really any any Ethernet port. So any RJ45 port it plugs in, that becomes your BLE beacon. And then aside from that, there are sensors. There's an 8-in-1 sensor that we've developed and created over the last 9 to 12 months that we're launching in 30 days. And that beacon or that sensor really reports back into that beacon and lets you know the exact location of that. So to expand on that, basically, it would be an API integration right into, say, I'll call it the blueprints or something of a location. Let's just use a hospital as the continued example. So the blueprints would be laid over the mapping layer, and you would actually know where a device is, not only location, a geofence location, but that it's on the 3rd floor in the broom closet, right? So actually be able to narrow down specifically where that is. And there's many other use cases and functionality with our sensors as well. Temperature, barometric pressure, location, a door open, door closed, of course, temperature, right? So many different features and functionality, but so the use cases really expand depending on what you need. But again, it's DCS and Gurtam working together and using all the tools that we have in the toolbox to solve those problems.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks for elaborating on that. Now, Éric, can you please comment on the requirements to the system when it comes to the second case, which is paperless receipt of the load on the construction side?
Okay, so similar to the first case, because we're dealing again with WiaTag as the main device here. Essentially, we are deploying this solution using the photo feature of WiaTag. So really simple, you know, taking a photo is the main IO here. So a photo of a waybill, and then there's a whole workflow after that happens. So photos with notifications, of course. So whenever a photo is received by a certain person, we know that's a waybill. That photo is intercepted, it generates a notification, a link. I'll do a quick demo of that later, but it's a really simple solution. It's basically a photo and a notification and an event.
So the photo will trigger the notification, and then in the notification text, there is a very important parameter that we actually worked together on. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? Some additional ad hoc development.
Yeah, well, what we did is what we wanted to do, the requirement was that once this photo of this waybill is scanned, some other person needs to assign a budget and a cost code to that particular waybill, and then it's got to go to accounting. So we wanted to have some sort of a workflow there where the photo's taken and then we have these other steps. So we did a certain part of it in Gurtam, in wialon. So the notification, trapping of the photo. But then what we're doing in that notification was we're sending an email. We're sending an email to another person whose job it is to enter the code. And we actually were able, and this was tricky, but we're able to pass parameters from wialon to this email link, to this link, which then when the person gets the link in an email, they click on the link, it takes them to Google Forms, a form that we built where all these parameters from the original photo are passed along from WiaTag to wialon to the email to Google Forms. So we know who took the photo, at what time, which geofence they were in, that sort of information. And then I'll show you a quick demo of this, but then eventually all that information ends up in a Google Sheets document, which is then sent to accounting. So they get a nice clean spreadsheet with every receiving that was done, who's done it, what's the budget code, what's the cost code, all that information, where it was received, which date, and so on. So it's a full paperless system now.
That's great. Éric, can you please demonstrate the feature that you've been talking about right now, the paperless notification, photo notification mechanism that you worked on?
Okay, let me just share my screen. Hang on a sec. Just gonna put this here. Share my screen. Here you go. Let me know if you can see my screen. Share.
Yes, we can.
Okay, lots of stuff. It's pretty busy, but on the left here, that's my phone. So I'm holding my phone in my hand right now. This is what you would see. This is the WiaTag application. So if I'm receiving some stuff, I would just press on the plus. It's in French here, but you can figure what it is. I just clicked on take a photo, choose my camera. So essentially I'm doing receiving. I'm out in the field. Let's say this is my waybill. I just take a photo of the waybill, use the photo, and then what happens is automatically I'm going to get an email which is going to come in to my inbox, or maybe even right here. There you go. So if you see here, I'm just going to make this a bit larger. You can see that's the photo I just took of my desk with my breakfast here. This is the email. So essentially it says, waybill received by worker 1. I was in my office near this address. Click here to enter the budget code. So the person receiving this is not the person who took the photo of the waybill. It's the person that's responsible for entering budget codes. Before, they used to get a pile of papers at the end of the day. Now they get this email. All they do is they click on the email, and then look what happens, okay? Now they get the form here. My screen is a little small, but let me just minimize all this stuff. Clean up my desktop a bit. Okay, so I get this form, which is paperless receiving. By the way, this form works as well on a phone as it does on a computer. So all this information you see here, the date, the geofence, the name of the person who took the photo, this is all passed in parameters in this link here. It's all generated in wialon. It's generated in this link in the notification, taken from the info from the photo and the person who took the photo. Then you got a bunch of questions, was the delivery complete, incomplete, was it damaged? Here, add a photo. So here you go. So then what happens is all they have to do is take the photo, drag it over here, upload it, boom. It's now in Google Forms, and it's now going to be added to this spreadsheet that is going to go to accounting. So a bunch of other questions, job codes, and then here we go, up, PO 123, almost done. Here you go. Then I drop down with all these codes are all loaded dynamically from Google Sheets. So a certain person might have different codes that they use for the stuff they receive, or a different group. So none of this is hard coded. It's all loaded automatically from Sheets. And then I send the form, and then all of a sudden, boom, the form is sent. It's all ready. There's a Google Sheet that has all these waybills that were scanned during the day. So it's completely paperless now. Very simple to use.
Thank you very much for making this demonstration to us and our partners. Okay, well, thank you, gentlemen. These were all the questions about technical implementation. Now I would like to ask you about testing and launching. Couple of questions about that. So the first one, how did was the solution tested, and how did the testing go with your client? Éric, can you please comment on the cleaning services?
Well, this was, I guess we could call it rapid development strategy. The client calls you up, we talk about requirements, and then we say, well, we think maybe we have a solution. I'll get back to you tomorrow. So you work all night testing things out, and then working with WiaTag and working with the Gurtam team, back and forth with tech support guys. And we finally worked out all these quirks, this solution using Google Forms. I must give you, Liana, all the credit. You suggested.
That's the second case though, but we're talking about the cleaning tracking services.
Okay, so for the cleaning tracking service, yeah, essentially we tried a geofence based approach. We tried the QR code based approach. You know, there was a lot of iterations, trial and error. We did some tests on site. We did tests with the client. We refined the model. Even the whole deployment strategy of the WiaTag application using QR codes. You know, you have hundreds of workers where you need to deploy this application on their phone. That whole deployment strategy had to be pretty quickly developed so that it's easy to do and seamless. I admit we'd never done this before. We had never worked with WiaTag. We'd worked with trackers of all kinds. So this is all new to us. So it really wasn't done in a very structured and planned out manner. It was really on the fly, you know, rapid development and trial and error, but it worked out, and we came up with a pretty robust solution in the end.
And the solution was launched, right? Do you remember when it was launched?
Probably about 3 weeks ago. We have, I guess we probably have a couple of hundred cleaning people. The second use case that I talked about, I just showed you, the paperless receiving on the construction site. That's going to be probably another couple of hundred workers. We haven't launched yet. It's a bit more work to set up because of all these forms. You know, if one worker has so many budget codes and another section of the construction site has different codes, we have to have different forms, different spreadsheets. All that stuff needs to be set up. It's more work, but we're starting the first real life deployments in the next couple of days. So that's okay. Coming just now.
Okay, wonderful. Mike, can you please tell us if your solution was tested with the end user, with the hospitals?
Yeah, absolutely, Anna. Yeah, so once we got past kind of the conceptual stage and through the initial, you know, what it is, how it works, what it should do, and how it behaves. Yeah, so for the local hospital, they decided to grab a couple devices. Actually, we brought them over and allow them to start testing. And they've run basically, I wouldn't even call it a pilot, but more of a proof of concept and understanding what it can do. But the opportunity, I think, is really even greater than that, right? So, you know, my ultimate goal would be to use them as almost a case study, right? Where we can go in and actually solve a problem that exists and then look at growing that opportunity into other peripheral type of use cases and solutions. So still really in the proof of concept type stage, and that's fine. Beyond that, though, it's just that solution and promoting that solution immediately got us as far as Governor Cuomo's office, actually, in the state of New York. So that piqued an interest with one of the staffers there, doing a bit of research and pre-call planning. New York had taken in quite a bit of donations of ventilators. And the goal there was really to provide them with, as I mentioned earlier, really an audit trail of where those assets are. So to answer your question, Liana, it's still in proof of concept stage, but really the goal, or my goal is, is really peripheral to that opportunity and creating new opportunities based on our abilities.
That's awesome that it reached actually Governor Cuomo's table. That's exciting. So it will open a lot of doors to you guys. Great. So now I would like, so Éric already mentioned the second case that it's being launched in the next couple of days. Now I'd like to ask about the challenges that were revealed during the the testing. Were there some challenges in terms of maybe deployment, or when it really started being tested, like the feedback about the challenges? Éric, can you please comment on some imperfections?
Yeah, we ran into a few challenges. I think originally there was a bug in the iOS version of WiaTag, something that I think nobody had noticed because maybe nobody was actively using that, but we use the there's a configuration. You can define a standard configuration package, and you can push it to the phone, to the WiaTag, the remote control of that WiaTag app. We can lock it so they can't change any parameters, that sort of thing. And we weren't able to push the config package on the iOS phones, but it worked fine on Android. So quickly, Liana, if you remember, you escalated that to your development team. They found the bug like in less than overnight. They fixed it and they published it right back out to the App Store. Like a day later, we had a new version on App Store. The bug was fixed and it was working fine. Before that, the whole deployment and control of the solution just wasn't there on iOS, on iPhones, and that created a huge problem. And I must say that your team was extremely responsive there, and thanks, or kudos to them on that. We ran into other challenges as well. I talked about geofencing. We're trying to use a new report that's been imported, which is that's been created, a new geofence report, which allows you to do things like report on unvisited geofences. Not just trigger something when you're in or out of the geofence, but you can list which geofences have not been visited, which we figured would be great so we can see which trailers or portable toilets have not been cleaned. So we defined geofences around all of those and started using that. But we quickly realized that there's some limitations there, because sometimes you'll have 4 portable toilets next to each other. They're really close. And defining that small of a geofence is a problem because of the precision of outdoor GPS is a couple of meters or 6-7 feet or 10 feet. So we were getting overlaps in these geofences. Sometimes we'd think that a certain toilet was clean, but it was the one right next to it. And so we're finding that for our use case, using geofences doesn't work that well because these assets are too small. Think of a hospital, Mike, like your example, the geofence can be pretty big, and when it's pretty easy to know when something left that geofence. But if it's the size of a portable toilet, because of the precision, it's challenging. You'll get things like you're in, you're out of the geofence, or you're in the wrong geofence. So it's still a bit of a challenge because it's now we know exactly what's been cleaned because they've scanned the barcode or the QR code that's on a particular toilet. If they didn't scan the one next to it, we know that one wasn't done. We still don't have a great way of flagging when things have not been cleaned. It's really easy to see what has been cleaned, but kind of the not visited geofence type of report doesn't really exist for scanning of codes. So that's still something we need to figure out how we're going to do that.
Okay, great. Thank you for the feedback. Kudos to our mobile team. We're saying hello to you guys. Well, definitely the geofence report and the workaround that you found with event report, like events tracing report, was also helpful. Mike, were there any challenges when the local hospitals were testing tracking ventilator solutions?
Yes, right. So everything's challenging right now, Liana, right? Going to the supermarket is challenging. So yeah, dealing with a hospital, it certainly presents its challenges as well. But, you know, we found them to be pretty well put together as well, right? So they've, most of the initial conversations were done out of doors. So really right out in front, they had a receiving area, and then you were able to kind of be moved over into another, hesitating to say quarantined area, but a designated area, right, for certain business and stuff to be conducted. So it definitely had its challenges, but you know, we found that hospitals, just like us, and figured out a way to quickly adapt to those challenges and be able to accommodate things like this.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mike. Eric, were there any challenges during testing the paperless receipt of the load?
Yeah, for sure. Before we actually embarked on this thing, I don't think anybody on our team had ever worked with Google Forms. So we had to become experts really quick. So there was a learning curve there. I mentioned that all the codes, as you saw in the demo, all the codes in those drop-down menus are all dynamically pulled from a spreadsheet. So all the client has to do is maintain these spreadsheets of codes, and as they have new codes that come in, they just add them in the columns in their spreadsheet, and we go and we read all those, we load it dynamically in the form. So figuring out how all that works was a little bit challenging. Also, depending on which code you pick on the first question, you'll get a different drop down on the second question. So we had to bring in some intelligence in there in the workflow of the form to be able to do 2 levels of questioning. So based on what you answer in the first question, you get a different question or a different drop down of subcodes on the second one. So all that took a bit of time working with the whole Google accounts. We had to set up an enterprise Google account for the client and then manage security and all that stuff, firewalls. There was all kinds of technical challenges all through the process.
Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. And I have the last block of questions, and it is the block is about the feedback from the clients, from your end users. So was the feedback positive? What they, you know, how they liked the solution that you offered? So Eric, really briefly, can you please comment on both cases since it's one client?
Yeah, I mean, both cases, we started with one project, everybody was ecstatic, and then boom, it led to a second project, and now we're on a third project, which I haven't even talked about. So yeah, obviously this is a real success. And as you can see from tracking our account, Liana, we just keep adding these packs of licenses because every few days the client says, okay, I need 25 more, and I need 25 more, and I need 25 more. So, I mean, that's great.
You know,
so that's great. We're quite pleased. Obviously the feedback is phenomenal from the client.
Thank you. Mike, was there any feedback from the hospitals or any other prospective leads?
Yes, Liana. Yeah, and again, you know, to reiterate, there was a lot of interest really just in the concept, right? And I think that's almost the lesson here, right? Is that this is the time for IoT, right? Problems have solutions, and that's exactly what we do as a solutions company. So yes, I would say it was successful. It was very successful as far as our bar, really with just getting in, creating awareness, developing a solution that quickly, and then really prospecting as to what additional peripheral type solutions now that this could, problems that it could solve, right? So ventilators is a very, very, very small space. And, you know, beyond that, there's medical devices, but even greater than that is just a high value asset, right? So beyond dots on a map, beyond fleet, right? It's a thing. It's, again, it's that T in the IoT. So is that thing valuable? If it is, well, we've got a way to help you monitor that.
Definitely, you have a way to scale this project for other projects. That's great. I guess the last question for today, what would you recommend to our partner community, to those partners who might be interested in in cases similar to yours? What would be the recommendations that you can provide? Mike, can you share your recommendations with the partners all over the world?
Yeah, absolutely, Liana. Thank you. You know, my parting words on almost every call, every conversation that I have is use this as a resource, right? And then when they do, I thank them. You know, I'm grateful that they do use this as a resource. So if there's a problem and they're looking for a solution, please come to us and utilize us as a resource. Beyond what we do with our MyFleet solution, you know, we do a great many other things in the IoT space, based on our pedigree, really, and experience in this space, you know, going all the way back to OEM embedded modules and modems. So, you know, I would say please use this as a resource. We have a wealth of knowledge, really, but also resources on our side to assist.
Thank you very much. Éric, can you please make your recommendations to the partners with similar projects, or who would like to, you know, pursue same customer segments, not customers?
Sure. Well, I guess similarly, I mean, we're an innovation company. We spend a lot of time doing very creative work. Not everybody is set up like that. Not everybody has the resources to do that. So we're happy to help if any partner sees one of the solutions that we've developed and thinks that they can apply to one of their clients. We'd be happy to partner, work with you guys, share whatever we've learned or whatever we've developed. Obviously, this is a community, and I think together we'll be stronger than individually. And you know, likely none of us, or very few of us, are competing in the same markets. So you know, we're really happy to share with any partner around the world.
Thank you very much, Éric. Thank you very much, Mike. So now we have a couple of minutes left for questions, and we have questions from not only here in Zoom, but also from YouTube. And can you please? So the one question was, sorry.
The question. Okay, the question.
You have to mute your phone.
Can Mike disclose the brand of the hardware, which is MyFleet Bold Mini? Can you disclose the name, or probably partners should reach out to you for more recommendations? What would be the ideal option?
Yeah, I prefer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because you know, it's so use case based, Liana, that you know, the hardware really depends on on what that use case is, right? Is it outdoor? Is it indoor? Is it mobile? Is it static? So yeah, please, if any partners, please reach out to me directly, and we can really diagnose as to what the hardware solution should be. What we're talking about more today is really the software and what it does, but the hardware would absolutely be use case dependent.
Great, thank you. So partners who are listening to and watching our meetup today, please, you have a couple of minutes to ask questions to our experts today. We're just waiting for some more questions. Okay, Kate is saying that there are no questions on YouTube, as well as we don't see any questions in the chat. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking your time to join us today. Thank you for sharing your business cases with our partner community. I hope that our partners will get inspired by you and also come up with some ingenious ideas, and you know, we will be always happy to help them implement those. Thank you again for joining us. And just to remind, you know, to our partners that this meetup is being recorded, and you will be able to watch the recording later on YouTube channel as well as on the meetup page. Next meetup is going to be on June 18th at the same time, 5 p.m. Minsk time, and Alexander Kuvshinov, the head of wialon division, and Anastasia Roh, head of marketing department, will hold a Q&A section. So how it works is that, how it works. So wialon marketing and new events for the community. They will also announce a new competition for telematics community. All of you will be probably interested to participate in. Please stay tuned and find more information on our Gurtam meetups page. Éric, Mike, I do appreciate your help. I do appreciate your participants today. Thank you very, very much.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, Liana.
Thank you. Stay safe and stay tuned. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Good morning.